Welcome back to the show, everybody. And I'm absolutely thrilled today to be speaking to probably the person that I have wanted to have on the show for the longest time. Welcome, Denise Duffield-Thomas.
Thank you for having me, my friend. We have known each other for a very long time, and I'm honored that you have asked me. And I know the time zone is so horrible because I'm in Australia and you're in England, and it does not play. But
Yeah,
yes, we're both here.
I'm in Ireland actually, but
Oh, you're
it's
in Ireland.
like
That's right. Yes.
close, same time zone, but it's hilarious. We're talking on different days. Like, I always think that's
Oh, yes.
amazing. We're on different days of the week, and I think that's so
It
cool.
is, but it is, as you know, because you're in one of my programs, it is so hard when you say to people, so we've got another call this week. And I go, I can't say it's Thursday because it's actually Wednesday for some people and it's morning for some, it's night for some. And I always just go, just have a look at the calendar because it's such a nightmare.
It is such a nightmare, but it's, yeah, it is the reality of online business, but it's kinda cool as well. I just think it's really kinda cool, yeah. I mean, I have
Yeah.
been in your world and in your programs for 13 years this year. Actually, this month, it's 13
Oh my
years
God.
since
Were
I
you
joined
one of
my
the
boot camp.
original
I am.
groups?
I am.
Maybe.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely. And it was just like, and I think that's when I was looking at the date for this, I thought like 13 years. Wow, that's just incredible. And
Yeah, that is.
it's I really admire how you've stuck, like, I talk all the time, part of my brand is all around one thing, and I just admire how you have actually stuck with one thing for the time, and I've had about 20 or 30 different programs in that time, and I just love the way you've done that. And I want to, like, we've both grown up a lot over that 13 years, so, and I haven't even introduced you, but I'll do that in a different introduction. But basically, for anyone who doesn't know Denise, Denise is, I just think, the queen bee of money mindset. She just is such a champion for women and money and overcoming money blocks for the new way, sort of the new way that entrepreneurism is done now, the new way that business is being done these days. So I wanted to kick off by, I'm obsessed with helping women in like perimenopause, menopause, and beyond to really help navigate their businesses and lives, because I think there's something that happens around for most women around that time where they get, like, they might be challenged with having kids and all sorts of things in their life, relationships, work, growing a business. But there's something that happens with so many women around, particularly around the perimenopause stage, where everything just kind of changes. And it's just like, oh my goodness, how did this happen? So can you share, like, did that happen with you? Has that, I know you're a good bit younger than me, but what's been your experience from yourself and what you've observed?
Well, first of all, I want to say I think the first time I heard the word perimenopause was from you. I have to say that because my mum never talked about it. This is such a common story, right? My mum never really talked about it. My mum's not even that much older than me. She's 17 years older than me, 18 years older than me. But she seemed to just kind of, I don't know, go through it. And then I was out of home probably when she was going through it, right? And so I heard about it from you, but I kind of thought, okay, well, that doesn't apply to me at the moment. And I think sometimes there's this feeling for women, I think, who are in similar industries to us, that it almost feels like a failure to admit that you're going through perimenopause because it feels like it's a mindset thing rather than a normal phase of life thing. And so when I started experiencing symptoms, like a lot of people, I didn't know what it was. Um, it was actually at the start of the pandemic for me. And so I thought it was depression, anxiety, being stuck at home with kids, homeschooling kids, all of those things. And what it actually was perimenopause and my undiagnosed ADHD colliding, which I know you're nodding very vigorously. And the reason why I missed that for so long too, one, I'm a girl, but two, the symptoms of the rest of my family with their undiagnosed ADHD were so severe that I thought I was the normal one. I was the responsible one. I was the one who was pretty much a good girl, but I forgot my bus pass every day at school. I never knew what homework and I had. And I kind of chalked a lot of these things up to having a single mom, not that I had this thing, right? And so it was very isolating, I think, for a long time, but I'd learned to kind of overcome and manage some of those things. You know, I'd lose my keys every single day. So I put electronic keypads on my front door. You know, all of these things, I had systems and little layers built in. But as soon as perimenopause hit, and I literally could not do any of that, and I couldn't distract myself with travel or conferences or work, even in lots of ways. And I did not leave the couch except to do podcast interviews for about 6 months. And nobody knew. Nobody knew. And I think it was from hearing people talk about things, you know, like yourself. And thank God for social media and for people talking about things like that too, because that's how I went to get a diagnosis. Because I had gone to the doctor many, many times over my life about my ADHD symptoms. And it was always like, oh, maybe it's a brain tumor. Let's go and search that. Maybe you have this, maybe you have that. And so I'm so grateful that I found groups and women who were talking about it. And I was actually speaking to a much younger woman yesterday. I think she's 25. And I was talking to her about, you know, oh, well, I take this and I take this for perimenopause. And she was like, oh, yeah, cool. And I said, you know what? By the time it comes for you, you won't even have to research any of this yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you'll actually hear the word decades before any of us
Yeah,
had.
because it has become so much more part of the conversation now. But I think it's very present in the conversation for women that are employed and working in
Mm,
jobs so much. It's just so much like
yeah.
workplace menopause programs and workplace this. And whereas I think female entrepreneurs that work in the online business space, it's just like show up and kind of put up an awful lot of the time. But it's so many of my conversations behind the scenes with clients and everything is around this. And I've had like nearly all my clients over the years, I have had a bit of a conversation with them because they're just like, I don't know what's going on. My confidence is in my boots. Because for me, it didn't hit until, and it was actually during the pandemic as well. And it
Mm.
was at around the same time, just before my ADHD diagnosis. I had my diagnosis was
Twinsies.
actually twinsies, Virgo twinsies. Mine was
Yeah.
actually the following year. I think it was 2021 when I was 56 was when I was diagnosed because
Wow.
I didn't used to lose things very much because I was like when I was younger, like there was so much shame about not being perfect and everything. And I was the middle girl of three girls, very,
Mhm.
very controlling father. And it was just like I had to force myself from a very young age not to do. And if I broke anything or lost anything, I had to I completely hid it. Like I just didn't tell anybody, and I just carry around all this shame of that, and just make
Mhm.
out everything was normal. And then I went and became a nurse, and then a naturopath, and I was just like everything's fine, everything's fine. And for me, it was like postmenopause. And I haven't seen it with my mum
Mm.
either because my mum had hysterectomy at 36 after having three girls very close together. And so she sort of didn't go through the kind of normal stages that most women go through. And it was just like, it was really fascinating then when it hit, because I had run a naturopathic practice for 25 years, specializing in female hormones. And when it happened to me, I was just totally railroaded. So it's like, it's amazing. It's not like it can be such a shocking time for us to realize like that, oh, this is why my confidence is in my boots, or this is why I can't remember anything, or this is why my brain just feels so foggy all the time. So
Yeah, it's hard, right? And it's hard for your ego, I think. But I actually found just so much gaslighting from other women at first. You know, I had someone who was like, "Oh, no, 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 don't think like that. Don't succumb to it." And I really thought, imagine if, you know, my daughter Willow, who's 11, you know, she could get her first period at any time over the, you know, next couple of years. But imagine if we'd said similar things to her. Oh, no, it's just your mindset. No, 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 no. If you're, you know, pure in your thought and if you meditate, you won't get your first period. And like be able to see that as just, oh no, this is just a natural part of life. It's not a moral failing that I'm running out of estrogen. Like it's not, you know, I can't meditate my way out of that. It is just a normal period. It took me a little while to reconcile with that. I think there's a bit of a mourning of, you know, that phase of life is is gone in a way, right? And I remember just thinking, oh my God, especially when I first started having, I'm guessing we're allowed to talk about icky stuff on here, but when I first started having like really dry vagina and like I remember crying thinking, well, is that it for my sex life forever now? Like that part of my life is gone, not realizing that no, this is a new phase of life. And thank goodness that we have so many, thank goodness for science and thank goodness for all these things that we can do to make sure that we have that longevity of our sex life, of our brain life, all of these things. But I did feel a real mourning. Similarly with the ADHD diagnosis, I was immediately just like, oh my God, this is amazing, thank God. But I was also just like, oh man, imagine if I had been able to do my degree in 3 years instead of 6. Imagine if I didn't waste all of that time, money, energy in shame. Yeah, there was a real like, oh, that's sad. But then it's like, oh, now I can do all the things, which is cool.
Yeah, like mine was a good 18 months of grieving after the diagnosis, the ADHD diagnosis. It was just really, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to, or if I did, I was very careful who I spoke to about it because, again, gaslighting of that, like, yeah, everyone's got a touch of ADHD, and it's just not true. And it's just like there's so many women, female entrepreneurs with ADHD because we find it really hard to be in a job. I even like
Oh yeah.
I got told off, like, as a nurse, I was always getting in trouble. I was in trouble for wearing big hoop earrings and having too many ribbons in my hair and not wearing the right standard shoes and for sitting on patients' beds and holding their hands and crying, listening to their stories. And I was just like I was always meant to be a coach. I was never meant to be like, emptying bedpans. But it's like it's so interesting these stages we go through, and I think the perimenopause menopause stage is just like it's a long period of time. And I was fortunate that I had done so much work in the arena and I had been to quite a few conferences and things. I knew I could recognize being re-traumatized, like women who haven't healed from past traumas. Perimenopause and menopause re-traumatizes women, and
Oh, I
it's not
bet.
just a herb, even HRT, like isn't going to fix it. It takes like maybe therapy, maybe all sorts of different things, and that's when I really got to work on myself and really did and started studying trauma-informed stuff and somatic stuff and breath work and all the things, and that's where the real healing happened. But it's a very interesting time. And so has it changed the way that you approach your work from going through that?
Um, yeah, it has a lot. And actually, I think when I was going through that period where I literally just couldn't shower, I was just sitting staring into the distance basically. But I could get up and do podcast interviews, and I think that's why it was, and because I was so busy, and actually my business did really well in that time because so many people were like, oh, okay, now I'll study, or now I'll learn about stuff. So I remember just thinking, oh, like, because when you're in it, you think this is it forever now. So I was like, I don't know if I can even have a business anymore, because it took every ounce of my life force energy to do the things that I had done before, like do um, my podcast, or do 3 days of video batching or whatever it was. I was like, I can kind of pull it together for that, but then I have nothing for anyone else, for my kids, nothing. And my third baby, when was she born? 2018. So she was really young at the start of the pandemic. And I'm like, she toilet trained herself. Like I had nothing for her. I felt like she was really raised by her nanny for a little bit, because I had nothing. And so I remember thinking, wow, this is really unsustainable. But also because I'd spent the previous probably 5 years in real empire building mode, um, I had, built a really big, beautiful house by the ocean. We'd bought our farm that we were, plowing a lot of money and energy into. And I just thought, okay, well, if this is the new normal and I can't do this anymore, I can't sustain all of these things. And it was a real wake up call for me because, yes, I was making a ton of money and I was helping a lot of people, but there's a difference between doing that from a place of joy, but then having to,
Yes.
and kind of going, holy shit, like I can't outsource me.
Yeah.
I can outsource everything else. I can create systems, everything else, but I am a very finite resource at the moment. And I think that was just a bit of a wake up call to simplify our life a little bit. And I would love to say that was a quick and easy thing, but it's actually there's still probably a couple of little things. I'd say it's been a 3-year project to really unwind. Like we sold our big beach house, moved to the suburbs, which has been amazing. We're in the process of selling our farm, so that's been a big project. And shifting things in the business, and that has meant, and I'm sure this has happened to so many people that you know as well, that is, I've lost friendships, I've lost just, I don't know, like there's been a few things where I realized, there's some family stuff that's happened because I had to be like, I'm no longer enabling you. So it's
Yeah.
the boundaries stuff, people did not like that. So yeah, it's been a 3-year project, but the thing that really helped me, and I know we wanted to touch on this, was that we decided to take a real sabbatical and away from Australia. So our youngest was about to start school, and we thought this is a perfect time to go back to England for 4 months to see Mark's family, because by that stage, I think Mark's been here for about 13 years. And, you know, it's hard for his family to come out all the time. It's hard for us to go over there. So we were like, let's have a proper time where we'll take the kids out of school for a term. And so that was such a good reset for us because we were away from our environment. And I really made a commitment not to work for that time. So that meant I had to really, you know, prep stuff and do a lot of things before we left. And I didn't tell too many people because I knew as soon as I did, I'd be asked to do speaking gigs or to do stuff. And I did do a couple of little things, but it was a real time of pausing. And as you know, Australia and the UK are very physically distant, but because of the time zone, like it's like I was in a bit of a bubble. And I took up cross stitching while I was there, and we did so much travel. I'm not saying it was it was hell sometimes traveling with kids. My mum came, our nanny came for some of it. We had to do, you know, did stuff with Mark's family. So there were times where there was like 20 of us traveling, and it was not fun with that many kids. But I think it was a necessary reset for us to really evaluate a lot of things in our life. And so we came back and we shifted things. We sold things, shifted up some business relationships, upset a lot of people, upset some family members, but it was the right thing to do. And I realized too that there were some decisions, like for example, our farm, which was such a fun, amazing project during the pandemic, right? Because I needed something that I felt like, oh, I actually don't have the capacity for risk and uncertainty like I used to. I used to find it really exciting and motivating. You know, when I bought the farm and when I bought the land for our beach house, we didn't have all the money for it. I was like, I'm going to do a launch for it. This is so exciting. If I had to do that now, my nervous system could not handle that. Maybe in the future when it's more, you know, more fun. But I was like, oh, I need to have as little stress in my life as possible and maximum joy. And so one of the things I took up when we came back from that trip was ballet. So I loved dancing as a kid. It was my refuge from a very uncertain childhood. And I found this adult ballet studio. I started off in 1 class. Now I'm doing like 8 classes a week. And I feel like I was like, oh, that's what I was looking for when I was renovating the farm. Oh, that's what I was looking for when I was creating these other things. I was looking for something that was really deeply fulfilling and creative for me. And so now this is so fun. I have to show you some props in a second. Now I make dance costumes for our concert, which is in next weekend. But it's like, oh, I get it now. I'm allowed to have joy. I'm not hungry for success like I was a couple of years
Isn't it
ago.
like not leading with the money?
Yeah.
It's like a life first kind of business, a joy first business. It's like leading with
Yeah.
that. Leading, like I've been on a similar journey, but mine's been about like just really calming down my mind. And I do it with my clients all the time. And it's just like they're like, oh, I'm actually enjoying being at the school gates, picking up my children rather than sitting in front of the computer. What's happened to me? Like, and they're just like,
Yes.
enjoyed it. I used to think, oh, I don't have time for small talk. That's not like this. And then they're like, but I'm enjoying this now. I'm enjoying the connection with other people rather than everything having to be about making money and being successful and being this
Yep.
growing this thing bigger and bigger and bigger. I've seen so many entrepreneurs over the last few years, and I was on the journey to it, like this pursuit for seven figures and the six-figure months and everything. And I was just like looking at it and looking at other people. And I've seen so many people with multiple seven-figure businesses bring them back down to a much smaller business with actually probably just as much profit from what some of them have told me, and far less complicated, much, much simpler, much less people. And I've done that. I've cut
Mm,
my team from like half a dozen people down to just one person part-time. And it's just like there's so much joy that I actually find
yeah.
when there's too many people involved, I feel a bit anxious. I feel like the energy of all those people's energy, I can kind of feel it. I don't know if you can relate to that, but you have simplified
I totally
greatly
can.
your business. Yeah.
I mean, I've always had a small team, and I think that is my personality too, of like, oh, I'll just do it myself. And, I could do that when I didn't have kids, but even when they were younger, I felt like I could do that a lot more. And even now, we have a very small team, but Mark manages everybody. So I don't want to have anything, I'm just like, no, fewer people as possible for sure. But it is that feeling of not being hungry but I want anyone to hear that if you are in your empire building phase and you are hungry, that is a very necessary stage as well. Like there's nothing wrong with that, and it can be very fun and stimulating. And I would also say save some money. Make sure you're saving money, because you don't always want to be in the empire building phase because you have to, because you're being chased by, bigger costs or a bigger lifestyle that you've created. And I'm very grateful that I saw that 4 years ago, where I went, oh, we are making a lot of money, but our mortgages are 50 grand a month. So guess who has to show up and do that? And I'm glad I started shifting things then, because especially now where the market is headed, and most of my clients are American, and that's, very, very uncertain. I'm so grateful that I don't have to, that I can choose to. And that comes from a place of financial privilege, right? So if you are in that empire building phase, just put some aside. I've made some really dumb investments, but I've made some really good investments too. So then I don't have to. But also I'm glad I don't have to feed the beast of, a big house that, to be honest, I loved building it, but I think it really hit at that point too, where the anxiety and confidence came up, and it was like really visible, big glass house on the beach that people could literally see into. And it was too overstimulating for my nervous system too. And so for us moving to the burbs, I was like, oh, okay, I can be anonymous, I can be safe. And I love going to dancing where I'm like, I'm not responsible for anyone. A few people kind of go, oh yeah, I think I know what you do, or I've read your book, but I'm like, oh no, that's not who I am. It's just a real feeling of coming back to the essence, but also not living for other people. And I think the last time I was in England, when I was speaking at a conference, I had so many people come up, and it was very sweet to say, thank you so much for being here. And I remember saying, at the time I was going, oh, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. And I said it so many times, it was like echoing in my head. And I was like, no, I can enjoy my work, but this shouldn't be my only pleasure in life. Like, that's a bit sad.
Yeah,
And
and don't we go like, maybe it is
yeah,
the empire building, as you say, where we get kind of addicted to our business, and it's kind of, like,
yes,
necessary for a while. That has a purpose to it, and
it
those of us
does.
that are like the more ruler personality that you talk about is like, we're just looking to monetize everything everywhere we look. There was a time I couldn't go to the hairdressers or anything because 'cause I'm just thinking about how they could do things differently. My parents were hairdressers as well, so that had part to do with it.
Oh, cool,
But
yeah.
it's just like now I really see it as really honoring the season that you're in. And I know that
Yes.
I'm approaching in a couple of weeks' time, I'll be turning 60, and I'm just really honoring the next season of really simplicity and really stepping into like really helping women around. I have this sort of emerging brand around women, wealth, and worth, and about them really stepping
Mm,
into their worthiness. Ar around no, and it's not so much about wealth building, but more about seeing what wealth really is to them, and it's with most, it's about actually really enjoying how exquisite an ordinary life is and just and the ordinary things, the day to day, and
yeah.
having to be able to have our own business and do it on our own terms and our own hours in the way we want to do it. I think there's incredible privilege for that, and I know not all women even these days have that. So for you, what would like what comes up for you when I talk about women feeling worthy around making money and being able to, because I know for so many women they really struggle with maybe being the breadwinner or being responsible for money.
Mm. Yes. Oh God, the word responsible is something I've been working on a lot over the last couple of years because I mentioned my mum's really young. And so I had this very old soul from a very early age that I was responsible for everybody and everything. And I yeah, I've spent a lot of time on this, I think, in the last year or two, going, I'm not responsible for that. I'm not responsible for that. And I know a lot of women relate because we do feel very responsible for fixing everything. And to really remind myself, like, not my circus, not my monkeys. And also sometimes they are my circus and my monkeys, but I'm still not responsible for them, right? So it's like it's taking on the burden of other people. For some women, that is, we're literally taking on financial burdens for other people. As you know, the nurturer type personality can often get into debt for other people, can take on financial responsibilities for others. So for me, seeing where I was doing that and letting some of those things go, but also just how much we take on emotions for other people and trying to not be as spongy to other people's emotions and to not try and fix everything, especially the things that are not our business, not our remit to even fix. I feel like we take those on too. And when we're talking about worth, what I've seen for women at any age is that we really discount what we have. We think that everyone can do what we can do. And I was actually at a peer mastermind with a couple of friends of mine. We just get together sometimes in a hotel and help each other. And I felt like everyone's at a very similar age. Either they've got kids or they're in perimenopause. And we were all kind of talking about going, oh, we're all feeling a bit tired and a bit, like a little bit cynical, but also feeling a little bit like our time is done. When you see kind of new voices come into the industry and they're fresh, they've got fresh batteries. And we were kind of like, oh, we feel like maybe it's time to move aside a little bit. These are all women like who are 45, right? And one of our friends she's only like 5 years older than us, but it's just enough to go, guys, no, there's so much more to come. And I went, oh my God, that's so true. And so I think we always have to curate our social media feeds in particular, what we're taking in, because we we obviously live in a youth obsessed culture. And if you allow yourself to only see that, you do always feel like your time has gone. And for us to always to be in the middle of our peer group, I think is really important, not even age wise, but financially, everything. So you can say, oh, there's people who I can see that they're coming up and I can see where I am in the circle of life. And I can see there's so much more to come. And there will be, more ideas and different things to come as well. And then you always feel like you're in the right space of your life, not behind, not gone. And Jane Fonda came to Sydney recently, and she's 78, and she's like, I'm still working, I'm still excited about things. And that, I think that's a really important thing for us to do all the time, just to go, oh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I can teach things to those people, and I can learn from these people, and I'm
Yeah.
exactly where I need to be. I think that's important.
I love that. I love that. And I was listening to something a while ago and they're talking about I think it was the orca whales, the whales that where when they finish breeding, they become the matriarch, post-menopausally, they become the matriarch, they become the leader of the pod, and everyone looks to them for guidance and leadership. And I think that's like so important. I had a few years ago, I had privilege, I had two clients that were 72. And they were such badasses. They were just unbelievable. One of them, I was coaching her around really creating a different, she's worked as a therapist for years, and she was really wanting to create a different kind of a business. And she set up a women's group, which was fantastic. Then she started coaching women on like taking groups of women on cruise ships because there was no internet on the cruise ships, and so she'd
Love it.
sit around the table all day long and coach and everything, and then they'd party all night and everything. And she was like 72, and she was leading these groups of women and everything, and I was just like, just amazing. Like, there is no expiry date, there's no like, we get to do what we want, but we get to do it on our own terms. Like, in some ways, I do feel like I wrote this post, must have been 4 years ago. I was 56, and it was like, I'm 56 and not planning on retiring anytime soon. I said, like, it's in so many ways I'm just getting started. That's how I really get my husband's blood pressure up, to say, like, I think I'm just going to start something new. And he's like, what? He wants
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
he's just like, he's 4 years older than me, and he's like, retire. And I'm just like, no, not retiring. And then I wrote on, it was hilarious. I wrote on, like, I'm not planning on spending my days walking around galleries or knitting. And it got so many people's backs up. They're like, what's wrong with knitting? What's wrong with galleries? I'm like, absolutely nothing. But the women who were just like, oh yeah, I'm 62 or I'm 58 or whatever. Yeah, like, can you show me how to do something new? And it was really fascinating to see different people's reaction, and how so many people are still very ageist about what we should be doing at certain ages, and there really are no rules these days.
There, exactly. And also, no one really cares. Like that whole thing of like dance like no one's watching, because they're really not. There's enough attention for everything. People look away from things that are not for them. And so who cares what you do? So as going back into dancing, not only is that ballet, but we're doing some cabaret stuff. And I was trying on one of the costumes. It's like a really skimpy and feathers and all that kind of stuff. And my daughter Willow, she goes, Mom, you're 45. And I went, yeah. And she goes, you're going to be doing this when you're 65, aren't you? And I was like, yes, I am, without shame, because it's like, well, God, we've only got one life to live. And like my nan, she died at 65, which at the time I was 25 and I thought she was a granny. And now I'm like, she was so young. She was so, so young, and she should be still alive today. She'd only be 85. And I just think, oh my God, who cares what you do? Like, we've got ladies in our point group, like doing point on point for the first time in their 60s. Our performance group, we've got a couple of girls who are 19, 30s, 40s, 50s, and we've got women in their 70s. And I'm just like, this is, yes. And whenever we perform, this is the most amazing thing. Because there's no adult competitions, right? So we have to go perform against teenagers. And every time, a pin could drop in the stadium, because you just see people go, oh my God, they're older women. This is amazing. And we always get the most applause, like we're, kind of special, which is very cute. But you can see it really moves people to see people doing something that's meaningful to them. And it's very vulnerable too, obviously, when you perform, but I know it just touches people so much. And you see some of the dance mums going, oh my God, I could still be dancing. Like, oh, could I still be doing this? It's, yeah, it's really amazing. And I think it is inspiring when you see that in whatever field. There's a lady I follow on Instagram. She's like a grandma, but she like dresses up like a festival thing. I can't remember what her name is. baddie or something like that. And it's so inspiring. And you go, at first, I know my ageism comes in because I go, oh my God, she's wearing a bikini and, look at her bingo wings. Because I've got that internalized misogyny, right, of the patriarchy of like women aren't allowed to age. And then I go, that's okay. She's allowed to do that. And look how much joy. She's got a walking stick that's bedazzled. She's wearing a rhinestone things. And I just go, yeah, that's what we should be doing because who cares?
Who cares? Yeah, I've been so inspired by your ballet journey, and I'm sort of playing around with what my thing will be. For a long time, for about 6 years, it was karate, and I went through most of the levels just before black.
Oh, yes.
But I loved being in the dojo and throwing, like, 16-year-old guys down onto the ground, like, it was just like,
Yes.
and I'm just like, "Do not treat me nicely now," and it was amazing to do that at the time, and now I'm just, like, not quite sure what's next, but, like, I have loved seeing your ballet, like, it's just, like, so incredible. So,
Yeah, it's been very healing too, because dancing was a real point of contention growing up for me too, a single mom. But whenever I had a stepdad, it was always be like, that's how they could punish me. Because I was actually quite a good kid, but it was like, you can't go to dancing then if you don't do your thing. And it was very fraught, it was very expensive. There are a lot of emotions attached to it. And so it is very healing for me to be able to go into Block and buy a pair of new point shoes. And I have way too many blue leotards, too many. But it's like I literally take it so seriously. I'm always having I put my little ballet ribbon in, and I have my matching things. And it is just beautiful having something that you can devote yourself to, whatever that is. And I've seen people do that with gardens, with art, with just learning new skills. I've got several friends who've gone back to university, and they walk in and people think that they're the lecturer, or they walk in and no one wants to be on their group for group assignments. And I just think, oh, there needs to be a university for 40 plus so we could all be together, not just be the oldies in there, because I could not learn at university in my 20s. None of it made sense to me. I failed Econ 101 3 times because it was abstract concepts. Like, I don't know how the world works. But now I think, oh, interesting. That would be so much fun to go and study, because now we understand the context of how all of these things fit together. And we have, I think, a lot more meaning involved. The way that I dance now is so different, and like, I'm smiling the whole time, you know, and it's just, this is what we should be doing with our lives, is having pleasure and role modeling that to other people.
and can I just ask, in the context of your business, how much has, like, leaning into so much joy from the dancing made a difference to your work? Like, do you feel like it's benefited to your work to have this other amazing outlet?
Yes, but not in the way that I thought at the start, because I think I was still in that ruler mentality of, well, hobbies are good for business, or this is good for business. Now I realize what it actually gives me is something that I should have learned a long time ago, which is separation. Is to say, my business is my business, and that's okay for it to not be my everything. And to also, for it not to be my only source of pleasure, and not take things as personally, which is something that I've been trying to learn for a long time, right? And I think it's helped me outsource things a little bit more, and be detached from the outcome a little bit, because I go, it's good enough. It helps people. It also means that I'm not as distracted, because I've been good at being consistent in my business for sure, but I don't know, I'm not that interested in growing it at the moment, and that feels okay too. So I think it's just giving me a little bit of somewhere to put some of that creative energy
Yeah.
without breaking my business, without feeling like it has to all go from there. So it's been really good. But I honestly think now, did I just spend all my time working? Because I do so much ballet now, and I just think, how did I fit in all that work before? But I'm like, but that's all I had.
That's all you
That's
had,
it.
and when your children were, like,
Yeah.
when you had babies, like, they're pretty all-consuming as well, so it's,
No, I actually think they're more consuming now for me. I had people telling me that happens. No, when they were young, oh my God, I had my breastfeeding pillow. I was like breastfeeding. I wrote all my books on maternity leave, basically. No, I feel like it's way harder now because now they actually do need, they need more. You know,
Yeah,
by the
more of
time
your
everyone
bandwidth.
goes to bed, yeah, they do. By the time I've like done all the stories and, you know, because even though Willow's 11, she said about 2 years ago, she's like, no one reads to me anymore. And I was like, oh yeah. So I'll put Piper to bed while Mark's putting George to bed. That takes ages because we've got a whole routine. I have to pretend to be a cat and like all this stuff, right? It goes on forever. And then I put Willow to bed and we read a couple of chapters of her story. You know, and then I'm like, it's 9 o'clock.
It's bedtime for
And then
you. Yeah.
I know. Well, then I spend a little bit of time. Then the dogs need a bit of attention. Then the cats need a bit of attention. Mark, like, who cares? Sorry, you don't get any attention. But it's like, I feel like my family do need more of me now. And I don't think I could have done that. You know, yes, you can juggle all of it, but I personally don't think I could have, um, because it was just taking so much energy. And also, I think when you have a personality driven business like I do, you do feel like you have to live a bit for the gram. You know, I was like, oh, I have to record this. Oh, I have to, you know, do this. Oh, this is a teachable moment for someone else. And I think now that I've filled my days with something else, then I can be very compartmentalized about work. And so, you know, I'm very good at batching content. So I'll go into the podcast studio a couple of times a year. I'll do 12 episodes in one day, and then I don't have to think about it. Same with my social media. I'll batch it and then I don't have to think about it because then I feel like, oh, I'm living for myself, not for the consumption or lessons of other people. And not everything that happens in my life has to be a lesson for everyone else. It took me so long to learn that because I just didn't, maybe because before I was diagnosed too, I kind of didn't really feel like a person, like a grounded person. And the more I've gone, oh, I'm allowed to, you know, have pleasure or I'm allowed to do things for myself. It has shifted then seeing the business for what it is, not as a part of my identity.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I really get that. I really get it. So as we need to wrap up now in a second, but I just
Yes.
want to finish up with like for a woman who's going through that perimenopause, menopause stage and feeling a bit railroaded by it all and really maybe really struggling with it, and is going to go and get the help she needs and everything, but and her business isn't quite so established. She can't just
Yes.
leave her business and go off and do anything. What would you say to her that is just really struggling with maybe her confidence and affecting her money mindset and stuff for that
Absolutely.
particular stage?
I think it's at the start, you have to think of it as a triage situation. What absolutely needs your attention, what can be parked. And it is that dire, wouldn't you agree? Like you have to just go, I have very, very limited energy here right now. So I'm going to have to say no to a lot of things, not forever, but just for now while I work this out. And I also think it's really important to surround yourself with other people who are going through it too, because no one practitioner knows everything. A lot of doctors have a lot of gaps in this world still. And so joining a Facebook group where other people were going through it and being able to share tips taught me so much, even about what questions to ask practitioners, what things to suggest, because you really have to advocate for yourself. And that is so hard when you've got brain fog. So that's why you have to really simplify things down to like the barest essentials. And that might mean you disappoint some people, that you hurt your ego a little bit. Like for an example, I'd signed up for 6 months to work with a coach on writing a book. And I had to say, this isn't the right time for it. And it felt like saying no to something like that in service of, you know, my mental health or whatever. It felt like I graduated to a new level. I was like, oh, I don't have to do all the things. Oh my God, no one is going to die if I put this down for a little bit. Oh, no one's going to die if I take off this burden that no one else even knows that I have, you know. And that is that triage situation. What really needs my energy right now and what can be put down. And it's okay for me to get what I need in this phase of life. So it is that oxygen mask on first, right? But it is like, if you're not right, nothing's going to work. And
Yeah.
also, I think the important thing that I always keep reminding myself is there's time. You know, I'm going
Yes.
to have more energy when the kids are out of home. I'm going to have phases of my life where I can write a book, because maybe maybe I don't have the words right now in this phase of life to write that book that's
Yeah.
supposed to be written in my 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
And to remind yourself there's time and I'm worthy of taking this time.
Yeah.
That
I love that.
menopause, right? I'm worthy of the pause right now. And I
Because
think
there is
that's,
no
yeah,
hurry. It can be so tough online though, can't it? Like you see everybody else doing all the things and you can be thinking like, oh, I have to be doing this. I thought that well, actually when I was in
yeah,
perimenopause, I did not one, but two TEDx talks. And they were so consuming. And I tell people now, like it's such a distraction. And doesn't actually, a TEDx talk doesn't actually help your business that much. It looks good, good for kudos, but it distracted me from my business of just basically I was in a stage of a year of just signing higher paying one-on-one clients. And then I sort
yeah,
of stopped when I did, and it was just like that nearly broke my business. And it was just like then it was regrounding myself back into it. And these things can be such a distraction. It can be, I was the same running
yeah,
international retreats, doing so many things. They can be all be, whereas you just stick to the basics of one simple thing, one simple program that you just sell
absolutely.
over and over and get good at that, you can have a lot more bandwidth for your actual life and healing from whatever is present for you. So I love that.
Absolutely. And also too, nothing has to be forever. So you literally could put some little simple rules in place. And so for me, it was international travel and doing conferences, because I was like, this takes up so much bandwidth. But also, especially when there was a lot of sickness going around, which it still is, I was like, going away for a 3-day speaking gig, I'm away 10 days from home and I'll probably come home sick, right? So I was like, not for now. And even just the way you communicate that to your clients is like, well, for the next year, I'm not taking on any of this, or for the next year, I'm only taking on 3 clients. So get in now, for the next year, I'm closing down that program. I'm closing down, my free Facebook group or whatever it is that's taking up a lot of your energy. But I think look at it in all areas of your life, and for me, there was, as I said, there was family things, there was some friendship things where I was like, wow, this is actually taking up so much bandwidth and I don't have it to spare. And so in service of this, I've got to um I've got to really focus
Yeah.
on the
Comes
only
to
things that I
really,
can
isn't
do
it?
right now.
Really
Yeah,
comes training down.
absolutely.
It's such a gift to yourself. It's why I like the sort of low frills kind of supermarkets we have here, Lidl and Aldi, because there's so little choice and there's so little frill that it's just like, oh, there's one kind of organic oats, there's one kind of this, not 10 brands of everything. And I think it's the same in that,
Yes. Well,
having
I
to
was in Aldi
train.
yesterday actually, and I was thinking, in that center aisle where they have all the fun things, I was in there looking for lashes that they had there a couple of months ago, and that, like, I should have got more of them when they were there, because they're not always going to be there. But and I think that is good too, of even communicating that to your clients, right? Is that, I didn't, when I ran my last Rose Farm retreat, I didn't know it was going to be my last Rose Farm retreat, right? But again, to say to people, I don't know if I'm going to run this again. This might be your last opportunity. And yeah, just being like, yeah, it is what it is. And I think of it like with your kids, right? Where they go, I don't want that. And you go, it's this or nothing.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm at that stage of my business now to say, I can't customize everything for you. And, yes, I'd love to accommodate all your different preferences, but it is this or nothing, because I don't have bandwidth for anything else. And once you get to that phase, it's like, I think it's actually, people really like that certainty that you have sometimes, then to go, oh, okay, she knows what she can offer. There's no bullshit. And, you know, so it's like, these are the things that we probably should learn in business anyway. It's just that some things force us to. Like when I had my first baby, I had to learn some lessons. And now this is another way for us to be leaders, to be role models to others. Yes, we're kind of forced into it, but it's stuff that we should have been doing anyway. So it's beautiful. Very, and thank you again for, planting that seed for me, because again, it probably would have taken me a couple more years to even think about what it was without you talking about it. And you were one of the first people I saw in the online space talking about it.
Well, I think you're a very resourceful person, so I'm sure you wouldn't have it wouldn't have taken you a couple of years, but I do really appreciate you saying that, Denise. It's just like nothing's a mistake, is it? Like we bring ourselves along our journeys from like our backgrounds and everything all come along with us. So it's no mistake you've gone back to the dancing and that's bringing you so much joy and spreading so much joy
Yes.
online. I get so much enjoy watching it. So I think it's all we're all going along our paths. Denise, thank you so, so much for joining me today. It has been such a pleasure and a joy to speak with you. And
You
thank
as
you for
well.
all your incredible work in the world. And I'm going to pop in the show notes where people can find you and find your money boot camp and your incredible books and everything.
Yay.
So,
Well, I'm very easy to find people. Come and follow me on Instagram, Denise DT. Super easy to find. And I love hearing people's money stories and, anything that's going on for you. So thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it.
thank you so much.